people get pitched, women's shows get pitched by men that have never had a male guest on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hi, sir. Hi, host. Insert. I'd love to come on your show. Don't know what the show is. Don't know what the content is. So it's doing your due diligence.
Yes, due diligence.
I would say.
Hi, I'm Kyle Werkerly, certified professional ghostwriter. I'm glad you're listening as I welcome industry experts to share stories. You'll hear of lessons learned the hard way, overcoming professional hurdles, turning experience into actionable knowledge, and how to connect with your target audience. This is the Career Challenges Podcast. Welcome to the Career Challenges Podcast, and my guest for this episode is Kelly Glover. Kelly Glover is the founder of the Talent Squad and specializes in booking podcast tours for entrepreneurs and authors. She started podcasting in 2007 and has an 18-year track record working in media and talent management. Kelly knows what producers want because she's been one. With a background in commercial radio, Kelly has walked her talk and hosted her own syndicated radio show, worked as a talent agent, celebrity interviewer, and has produced award-winning podcasts. So, Kelly, thank you so much for being on the Career Challenges Podcast with me today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And you're in Sydney right now, right?
Yes, I'm in Sydney, back to LA very soon, but I skip out in the winter in the US and I trade it in for the Aussie summer. So that's the beauty of being remote, isn't it?
There you go. Yeah, you get the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah, I don't do winter. That's a hard pass for me.
True, I understand. I don't have a very good tolerance for cold, but every now and then I like a break from the humidity here in San Antonio. So first off, let's go back to the beginning. You said you've been in podcasting since 2007. So what was podcasting like in 2007? I know it was relatively new at the time.
Yes, so I was in community radio, and at the time we would pull the radio show off the logger after it had been on the air live, take out the music, take out the commercials, and that would be a podcast. So it was a really long and complicated process that would take hours, but basically radio without the ads and without the songs. That's what podcasting was back then. And these days you can just record it, upload a file, you're done in minutes, but then it was 6 pages of instructions, and if it worked, good luck, you hit the jackpot.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's been interesting to see it move from that to what it is today. Who knew? Yeah,
because I was still in college in 2007. I know that's dating me, but in 2007, I was just going to start my senior year. And I think podcasting was still relatively new. I'd heard about them, but I didn't really think much of it. How long had podcasting been around at that point?
I don't even know because I had no idea what it was going to become. So I feel like it maybe a year or something like that. I mean, we weren't even. It's such a different time. I wish we knew what it was going to become so we could look back and figure out when we did things, right? So I don't even know when the Google Maps came in, when Facebook came in, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
I remember Facebook. Yeah, I remember Facebook. It was a big thing because I went to Howard Payne University, itty bitty college, middle of nowhere, Texas, literally the middle of Texas. They figured out the geographic center of Texas, and we weren't far from it. So we literally were in the middle of Texas nowhere, going to this little Baptist school, and then social media hit. And it was my sophomore year in college, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, Facebook. And we're all connected. And it was the big thing, which is, looking back now, it's kind of sad because there really wasn't anything else to do in Brownwood, Texas at the time. So that was a big thing. So now I remember social media very clearly, of course, because Facebook just, erupted and changed everything. But podcasting, I had heard somebody mention that, and that was about as far as it went with me. It's like, oh, I wonder what that is. And it wasn't until, gosh, got to be 2 or 3 years later that I really was like listening to podcasts.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. What came first, the iPod or the podcast? I can't remember if I had an iPod and I was doing podcasting. I just know I was in community radio, and that was something that you did. And it's before I even got into radio school. So I hadn't even done my graduate diploma in commercial radio broadcasting. So I did it before I even went to radio school. So it's sort of, it's tricky. Yeah. It's tricky remembering, but it was amazing. It's very fuzzy, and just very complicated.
Mm-hmm. So you were doing community radio before you got your official degree. So was that just part of your training to get into that and to do what you wanted to do?
So I had been Yeah, I'd been doing some improv, and I knew I wanted to, it was something I wanted to do in addition to my regular job. I was looking for a creative outlet. So I did improv, I did community radio, and then I thought, I actually really like this. I think I'm pretty good at it. I'll go and apply to be in the National Radio School. They take 10 people in the whole country.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I thought, there's no way I'll ever get in. Maybe if I apply for 3 years, we'll just see what happens. And I got in on the first round and went, okay, well, I'm going to radio school now. And then, so I did that for a year, and then I got, on air on a radio station. And then I was a full-time radio announcer. So I just jump into things and give it a go, and it seems to sort of work in my favor a lot of the time. So I don't know how I did it, but it worked. And then from that into podcasting. So who knew?
Yeah. So I'd love to talk a lot about radio, of course, but we started with podcasting. I feel I need to stick with that. So you're doing the radio. When did you kind of transition full time into podcasting, or when did you decide, okay, this is my thing now, podcasting?
Yeah, so I did a syndicated radio show, the Love Song Dedication Show, for 3 years. I moved from Australia back to Los Angeles. I'd originally done because I went to college in Ohio, I did all my internships in Los Angeles. So I started back in 2001 doing, working for Miramax in Los Angeles, working for Miramax in London, interviewing celebrities on the red carpet. So I'd been back and forth to the States for a long time by that point. Moved to Los Angeles, and I couldn't get a job in radio with this accent. Completely different market. Misread everything, and then ended up starting writing show notes in podcasting. And in the beginning, I'll be honest again, as a radio person, podcasting was not what it is today.
Yeah.
So it was a bit like, oh, this is so amateur. I can't believe I've got to do this. Everyone was laughing at me. Oh my gosh. And then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I went from show notes to booking guests to producing shows. So it sort of just, it wasn't intentional. But then one day I went, oh my God, I love this. I can see where it's going. This is amazing. And I've been able to see it grow from being radio without the ads to what it is today. And it's just accelerated in the last 3 years since I've been in it full time. So I feel lucky to have, I guess by most people's standards, getting in early in working. Like I've been getting a full-time income from podcasting for years.
Wow.
Since 5 years now. So it's, yeah. So again, it's only when you can look back and you understand what's happening. But at the time, you just roll with it, and you're in it and you have no idea, do you?
No, you don't. True. And I'm a little jealous. You say you get full-time paycheck from podcasting. I would love it if that were true for me. But also I think I'm also jealous of your accent as well. I think that's amazing. I always love it when somebody, because I've had British and Australian and Polish, and I feel their accent, it makes them more interesting to listen to. And it's not to say that they're not interesting people to begin with. They have great stories. They, really great back and forth. It's just, I feel when I talk, because I've heard myself talk a lot, one of the joys of podcasting, you hear yourself a lot. And I'm like, my voice is not good. I don't want to hear myself talk. With an accent, I think would be more interesting though.
Kyle, the reason I'm in podcasting is because ain't nobody wanted to hear me talk on the radio with this accent.
I would want to.
It's a winner and it's a loser, but how great did it turn out?
Sure.
I'm so grateful for it, and it's amazing. So I feel like it was one of those meant to happen scenarios. But, in Australia, I sound the same as everybody else and nobody cares. Be quiet. Shush.
True. I understand that.
You should just go to a foreign country. It always works out in reverse, right? Come to Australia. Everybody will love you.
There we go. And my voice will finally be an asset. So when besides the accent and nobody wanting you for that dumb reason, what other challenges did you have to overcome with podcasting and getting, producing podcasts and getting them up and going?
So I worked for somebody else, and that's when I ended up doing my own biz. I guess I was a contractor or freelancer. And one of the challenges was you're at the behest of other people. So you've only got as much work as you can do. You kind of answer to somebody else, which is fine. But if they decide that they want to make a change, then you just have to roll with it. So I found myself, that happened a couple of times, and I was a producer, and it was a 6-month contract, and then it got extended to a 9-month contract, and then that's all it is. So I thought, okay, well, I kind of want to be in charge of my own destiny. So that's when I started my own business, The Talent Squad. And then that comes with a new set of challenges, like, okay, you're an expert in your field, you're a practitioner, but now you have to be a business person. And here's a huge lesson in everything that you never knew that you needed to know and do as a business person.
So true.
So, you're great at radio, you turn that into a profession, you try to use that profession, it doesn't work out, you get into another profession. Great, you're working for other people, but that doesn't continue. Now what? Okay, use that new expertise that you've got in your own business, and guess what? Now you need to know about hiring people and systems and processes and software and invoicing and getting clients and all the things. But to me, that is, lucky for me, I love that stuff and I'm super interested and I love learning. But it has been a challenge. It's not something I just automatically knew.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And so you're the Talent Squad. Tell me a little bit more about that, and then we'll dive into that too.
Yeah, so we're a podcast guest booking agency, and we book podcast tours for entrepreneurs and authors. And that in itself has been a journey. We're going into our 3rd year now. And just, what do people want? What are people willing to pay for? Okay, they wanted this. Now they wanted that. What's the pricing? What's the delivery? Who's coming into the market? Because podcasting is changing so much. That's been an experience unto itself. And it's consistent. Like, you think you've nailed something, but then it's consistently refining, defining, moving slightly, making it better. And again, you go in thinking, I know this is great. And then you look back and you're like, okay, that was a dog's breakfast. And look at me now. But isn't it amazing how far I've come?
Sure.
So the whole thing, I feel like I'm in my own science experiment, and I could not love it more.
Awesome. So then your approach when you first started the Talent Squad as opposed to now, how is it different?
Well, in the beginning, I just wanted to get my own clients because I'd been working for other people, and then I went into producing shows. So it was, okay, I know how to do this thing, but now I have to get people to say yes, trust me, hand their money over, and then like plant my flag and go out to the industry. That part wasn't a problem because I'd been doing it for a while, so people had known me, and I knew all the shows, and I had booked thousands of shows by that point. But I think that would be the first thing. So yeah, I went straight from being a senior podcast producer on a network making mid-6-figure podcasts to launching my own business, putting my website up and going, okay guys, let me get you on shows. So that was quite a challenge unto itself. And my branding has changed since then. So it's constant change.
Yeah. So how would you define your brand when you first started?
I think that I don't even know. I don't even know the words to wrap around that. I think I was still thinking like a practitioner, rather than an agency owner. So I think I was I think I came in as a freelancer, and then I've turned it into an agency and a business. Not that I knew that at the time. So it was going in as a freelancer with my self-announced systems, processes, structures, putting all the language around it, the messaging, all the things that go into a business, and then also working on your own personal brand as the face of that business.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, and my story isn't unique. I'm sure I know that what I'm doing, anyone else that has a skill and does it themselves will face exactly the same thing in their own way.
True. So then what is your brand now?
And what do you mean when you say brand? Because a brand is like 30 things rolled up into one. So is it the look? Is it the client? Is it a brand is everything from how you speak, what words you use, who your clients are, where you go, what platforms you're on. So I find it hard to define it in a few words. What's your brand, Kyle?
Well, my brand as the Career Challenges podcast, I'm helping people share their stories to connect with their target audience. It's kind of the apex or the overarching mission. And then from there, doing all those other little things, scheduling guests, setting up interviews, coming up with questions and writing. And so that's kind of my singular focus with the Career Challenges podcast. Now, as a ghostwriter, my overarching mission is to help people share stories and promote empathy among the world. And the main channel we're doing that through is writing books. So I always try to start with as simple as possible, and then work off of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you're sort of talking about what you do, who you serve, and all that kind of stuff. So we book podcast tours for entrepreneurs and authors, and we help people define we help people extract their expertise, turn it into talking points, and then put that on shows, because we find that a lot of entrepreneurs, authors, and business people, they're an expert in their field, but they don't know how to communicate that and then pitch it to the media. So we extract and distill that and translate it and turn it into hooks and headlines, pitch that out to the media, and then get them booked on shows. So we do a service that they can't necessarily do for themselves. And coming in as an outsider, we know how producers think. So I guess it's a producer and entertainment approach to booking shows, but it's also a full podcast strategy. So it's not just about showing up and doing an interview. It's, okay, well, what are you doing in the interview? So we get people to, expert status, elevate and reinforce their expert status so they're known as an authority in their field with influence. So it's about getting people exposure.
Awesome. So do you also offer, I guess, interviewing training?
Yeah, we incorporate that for our clients in media training, because we find a lot of people, they need a little bit of help with their key messaging, their talking points, their sound bites, staying on message, and then integrating, keywords in the interview. And also there's a skill to, what if someone hasn't read the book? What if they're not going down the avenue that you hoped? How can you ask and answer your own questions? How can you not necessarily control the interview, because that's not your job, you're there as a guest, but how to navigate your way through an interview is a skill unto itself. Otherwise, you've just shown up for a nice chat, which is fine. But if you've got a goal, you need to make sure that you achieve that during the interview. So that has a lot to do with interview training.
Definitely.
Well, still sounding like yourself, because it isn't a news report. It's not NPR. Like, it is still a casual conversation. So it's kind of patting your head, rubbing your stomach, hopping, chewing gum, and singing a song all at the same time.
Yes. And some people do that better than others.
Oh, that's a skill, and it takes practice. I used to be on radio 6 hours a day, and my skills were completely different back then because I was doing it all the time. And then getting back into being a podcast guest on the other side, it's something you have to continually do. You're not going to nail it after one interview, and you're consistently learning and refining and defining. So it's also helping you refine your own message. And like, for example, when you ask the branding, yeah, I know what my brand is, but being able to put that in a word, and what you think it is and what I think it is a different thing. So that's another skill from interviews as well.
Mm-hmm. And it would also help if the interviewer defined the question a little better. So
no, I don't mean it that way, but
no,
you can bet your bottom dollar after this, I'm going to practice and have that answer way better than what it is. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, that's an awesome lesson. That's great. I should be able to do that. I didn't nail it. That's got to be better for next time. Yeah.
So did you find yourself doing that as a host and as an interviewer of celebrities? You're like, I could have asked that better. How can I do that better next time?
Of course. I think it's all the time. And even you hear all these huge interviewers, they're always learning something. They're always learning something. And I mean, celebrity interviews is a completely different ball game when you're on the red carpet, you got a microphone, and because they have, I call it breaking the tape. So they have a tape in their head. Could have spoken to 100 other journalists the same day. You might have depends if it's a round table or a red carpet, you might have 20 minutes with them in a group, or you might have 60 seconds. They might even pass you by. And so you ask them a question, And if you ask the same question in the same way as other people, if they've got a little tape recorder in their head, they just press play and they're going to spit out exactly the same response. So you're going to have the same quote as 50 other people. There's nothing new. It's just the PR boring line. So you have to figure out a way to break that tape so you get something different. Because otherwise you're going to have the same story, the same quote. They've said nothing. Their eyes. It's kind of like I've interviewed a lot of celebrities and the lights are on and nobody's home. And it's not them as a person. It's just that they've done 100 interviews the day before. They're doing a job. They're there to promote the movie, use the party lines. They've got their messaging that they've got to get out, their sound bites that they've got to get out, and they're trained to do that. So it's kind of, they have their agenda, you have yours. Are you able to give them what they want, break the tape, have an enjoyable experience, and differentiate yourself? So that's a whole expertise unto itself.
True.
While still giving the audience what they want, right?
Yeah, because the audience wants to know kind of the same thing that all those other reporters are going to ask too, right?
Yeah, but they're also consuming a lot of media. I don't think you can assume that someone, like if it's Brad Pitt or whatever, that they're not going to see them in other places. So you've got to give them something different.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So then when you were doing that, and then now as you come into podcasting, do you kind of see that still happening? You know, people come on and they're going to regurgitate the same thing over and over again. And you're hopefully trying to train interviewers to, I guess, break that tape.
Yeah, there's a skill to interviewing, and a lot of time people say they just wing it. But at the Talent Squad, we say winging it is a waste, because if you just wing it, you're probably going to ask the same questions as everybody else. And the amount of times that a celebrity has said, oh, wow, you've done your research. Oh, I didn't know anybody knew that. When you get that surprise thing, they suddenly respect for you, and they're going to give you a lot more because you've put in the work instead of just showing up going, so tell me about the movie. What was it like on set? Like canned answers that you could ask if you haven't even seen the movie. I've seen interviewers say to other celebrities, have you even seen that? Or that's not right. That's just from Wikipedia. So if you do your upfront research and show the person that you actually care and want something different for them and care about them as a person, not a product, you're going to get something different. And that breaks the tape. It's like, beep, they're not playing the tape anymore, and now they're looking at you and answering the question, and they're actually there. So I think that in podcasting, again, most podcasters are doing it in addition to their business and something as an add-on. It's not their main income and or profession that they're doing full time. So, it is a different skill set. True.
And I'm still learning. I have to admit, I'm still learning.
Break the tape. Challenge. The gauntlet has been thrown down.
Yes, definitely. I'll work on now breaking the tape. So with setting up your podcast tours with your guests, what have been some of, I guess, your favorite moments, highlight moments where you're like, yes, this is exactly how it should be for all my guests?
Oh, so at the agency, we're very boutique. So I know all the shows that all my clients get booked on. So, but I also have bookers that we work together with. And when I saw an email come through and I'm like, I recognize that name. I'm like, she hosts something on Netflix. I'm sure that's the chick from Nailed It. Because I saw the name Nicole Byer, and it was. So we got one of our clients.
Wow.
Do you ever watch that show? Nailed It.
Oh.
And it's like they show
I've
a
seen
cake
it.
and then it's Netflix. They show a cake and then you have like 20 minutes to do a cake that took someone 2 weeks to do. So it's just a fun, entertaining show, right? But she also has a podcast. So getting a client on that podcast was pretty amazing. So I get excited when I know that my client would be an amazing guest on that show, and it's a show that reaches their audience, and then the host is amazing too, that would do a good job. So I feel like, yes. Amazing.
Yes. So of course you're looking to research the podcast to make sure it matches what the entrepreneur and the author is trying to promote, right?
Yeah, well, it's not necessarily what they're trying to promote. It's more about the expertise. So the thing about podcasts, like nobody cares about your book. Oh, I want to come and talk about my book. So what? Who cares? It's more about what value you can deliver the audience. So what does the audience want to know? I mean, that's a comedian, so that was a bit of a different type of show. Yeah. The Nicole Byers show, but usually it's who's the audience and what do they want to learn or hear from you that they can walk away at the end with actionable steps and have done something. Podcasts are edutainment. So people want to learn something, plus they want to have a personal connection and they want to be entertained as well. So when you're doing a pitch, there's really 3 people involved, which is the audience, the host, the person that's doing the pitch, and the guest. That's actually 4. Yeah. So now that I've said that, but you know what I mean? So really you're sending one email out, but you've got to have all those people in consideration. So you're pitching the host, but you're pitching for the benefit of the audience. Mm-hmm. So I want to come on your show. So what? Who cares? Nobody cares. Oh, I want to teach your audience how to do this because I saw 2 episodes ago they learned this, and I think it's something that will really help in their business and or life, and so they'll know how to do this. That's a good pitch. Yeah. So in order to do that with our clients, we have to figure out who their ideal audience is, what they're saying, what shows are receptible, is that even a word? A receptive.
Yeah, there we go, yes.
Term. I knew it wasn't it, but suddenly I didn't know what that was. Are receptive to that, and also what's the back catalogue of people that have guested on that show? Mm-hmm. You know, if you're an accountant and last week they spoke about taxes and they've covered off exactly what you're talking about, you can't go in and pitch the same thing. You can still speak about taxes because you know that audience is interested in that, but you need to come to the table with something completely different and either go against what that person said because you're offering something different, or add something additional to it that is different. So yeah, it's not just, hey, you've got a show, I want to come on a show. It's like saying, oh, you've got a party, can I show up? By the way, what are you cooking? Oh, chicken nuggets. No, don't want that. I want something else. Well, sorry, if you're coming to my party, you need to tell me what you're bringing me. What plate are you bringing? Are you going to bring brownies and cupcakes? Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd love for you to come to my party. You know, but people are asking to come to the party, but they're not offering to bring a plate.
Yeah. Or what's worse is I've had guests or potential guests, I've turned some people away. One of them just said, well, what do you want me to talk about? And I'll come up with something. It's like, no, you kind of have to work with me here. I mean, I could tell you, okay, well, this is what I want to do with the show, and then maybe we can talk about that. But, they're basically making me do the work for them to get on my show. I'm like, no, we're not doing that.
Yes. And Kyle, that is a huge point, which is if you are asking to come on somebody's show, like you are, you've sourced the show, you've vetted the show, you've pitched the show, you've decided that you're a fit for them and they're a fit for you, and then you've gone to the effort of pitching, like that's already a lot of work doing that. Then you really need to be ready. So you need to have your one sheet ready, you need to have your headshots ready, you need to have your talking points ready, you need to have a scheduler. So you need to be media ready, because if the person says, great, you know what, someone dropped out, you can do that tomorrow, have you got your headshot, your bio, your intro, your talking points, you need to be ready for that. So I highly suggest having an online press kit, your one sheet, and doing an online audit of yourself and your personal brand as well, because pitching isn't enough. As you said, any host, that's just the subject line gets the email open. If that's not good enough, you're not even going to get looked at. Then the first couple of lines needs to prove your value to the audience. You're not even going to make it through the email. There's all these little gatekeeper steps you have to get through. And then if the host is like, okay, yeah, Kelly Glover looks like she knows what she's talking about, you're going to look at my website. You're going to listen to me on other shows. You're going to do a whip around. So I need to make sure that every element and of course, Google's your best friend. You're going straight there. That's what everyone does. So you need to know what's written about you and what you've written and what you look like on Google, which as the gateway to everything, in order to get booked, because otherwise that's going to be a stop.
True. And you just described exactly what I did when you were pitched to get on my show. I'm like, okay, well, I need to find out about Kelly Glover, because if she shows up, and of course you've got all this knowledge and information that you can share, but if I'm like, so you're in Sydney, what's the weather like in Sydney? That's going to be a terrible show, and it's going to waste your time too. So hopefully the host is doing their work too.
Would you like to be a guest on the Career Challenges podcast? Go to careerchallengespodcast.com to find out how. While you're there, check out other episodes and download them through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Castbox, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. The Career Challenges podcast is hosted by me, Kyle Weckerly. I'm a certified professional ghostwriter who works with business thought leaders and industry experts to write polished manuscripts, assess their publishing options, and create book marketing plans. I've worked with consultants, high-ticket salespeople, coaches, speakers, C-level executives, and business owners. My authors have worked for USAA, Vistage, Booz Allen Hamilton, Austin Technology Council, and the John Maxwell team. My authors want to write a book to serve as a platform for their marketing endeavors. They know that becoming an author will help them secure speaking gigs, market their expertise, promote a product or service, and more. Are you ready to turn your experience, knowledge, and stories into actionable advice and connect with your ideal client? Then visit WeckerlyWriter.com to schedule a consultation today and begin your publishing journey. That's WeckerlyWriter.com. WeckerlyWriter.com. And now, back to the Career Challenges podcast.
Yeah, so Kyle, what's been your experience with getting pitched by people? You said you've turned some people down. You've said a few things. So how many pitches are you getting? Your show's been around a while now. And what do you like and what do you not like? Because I think that's hugely valuable information for the audience.
True. So you're putting the spotlight on me, and so I find that interesting. I enjoy that when the guest is flipping the script on me, but at the same time, it's like, that's going to be interesting. So I always have to have answers ready. And so to answer your question, there have been guests who wanted to just really pitch a product. This one guy's like, well, I've got this. It was a lead generator, essentially, is what it was. He had some big name for it. And you pay and you get great leads, and that was really all he wanted to talk about. I'm like, well, what stories do you have of building this and your journey to get to where you are? He's like, no, this thing is going to be great for your audience. I'm like, no, you just want to pitch it. And so I turned him away. And then, like I said, that other guest, she had said, well, what do you want me to talk about? And we'll talk about it. I was like, no. And so I still get some of those every now and then. I just have to be mindful for it, because when I first started, I thought I'll just take anybody. And when you're desperate and you do that, then that causes more problems than you realize. Because sometimes I'm like, I just need a guest to get this show done and put it out. Well, when you're in that mode, you take anybody and it ends up hurting you. So I had to learn to say no, even if it meant I might miss a show or I might miss a debut week or something, which is why I have a production calendar and I have at least a month and a half ready to go. If not entirely polished off, at least, an episode recorded that I can edit and then put out later. And so part of that is for me so that I have that buffer and I don't feel like I have to say yes. So that works in my favor. But then every now and then there's that person who says the right stuff. They make a really good pitch. They have a great story. And then they don't show. I had a guy, a TEDx speaker. He had TEDx speaker credits to his name. All these other conferences, and I think he even said he was a keynote as well. Just, huge list of, great stuff, and he didn't show. And then later on he said, well, I'd fallen asleep. I'd done some international travel, and so I just didn't pay attention to the clock. I said, okay, well, we can reschedule. And so I gave him some times, okay, we can reschedule this. I was like, well, what about this day, which was not one of the days I offered? And I said, well, I'm going to be with my family on that day. Can we change that? He goes, yeah, sure, you can cancel that. I'm like, oh, I'm great. Thanks for letting me cancel that. And that's when it fell down. I'm like, I just stopped talking to him. I'm like, he'll get the point eventually that, if you commit to that time, you need to either be there or reschedule. And I understand international travel and jet lag and all that. But part of that is your professionalism. If you've committed to that time, you need to show up or at least, be professional, let them know you're not going to be there. Let's change this around and all that other stuff. And so, yeah, I've had those moments and it's like, come on guys, you're professional. So.
Yeah. So I think that with pitching you, it's about knowing that you're a fit for the show, having something to offer the audience, also being prepared with all your assets and collateral, and then being professional in the showing up, delivering of the content, but also with podcasting as well. It's just having the tech available. So I would never do an interview just using the laptop mic. So you just need, and I'm not saying you need to go out and have a $600 mic if you have that
right
budget.
Now that I can see.
No, this is an ATR 2100 and this cost me $70. This whole setup is $100. But that's because I travel with it and I don't want this my traveler. But yeah, you can have a $600 mic, or you can have a $30 headset. But
like
just as long, like you do, and they're fine.
Yeah.
But as long as it, like, that still shows an element of preparedness. Like, you don't have to be $1 million guest by any means, but that just shows respect for the medium, because it's a podcast. All you have is the audio most of the time, and if you, it's the equivalent of showing up to a job interview wearing t-shirts and shorts. Like, your minimum viable needs to be a proper microphone. And so that's the way that you need to show up. Yeah. So, and then what's the frequency that you get pitched, Carl? Like, are you getting a lot these days? I think people think, oh, podcasts, they're easy. Everyone's got one. There's 750,000. But the people I'm talking to are saying, even if you get 2 pitches a day, that works out at hundreds and hundreds of pitches a year, and there's 52 spots. So just saying, hey, I want to be on your show is actually not enough, and it's not a gimme. Like, people are being discerning. And so they should.
Yes, they should. For my show, I'm getting, now that you put me on the spot, I can't remember the numbers exactly. But right now, I do have kind of more referrals coming in. So somebody is referring people to me, and I guess they don't necessarily have heard of me and they want to be on the show. It's somebody saying, hey, you should be on the show. And that's when they take a look and they say, okay, yeah, I think I would want to be on that. Let's set up a time. So with those, I'm getting probably about 3 or 4 a week. Once you average it out, sometimes you get a lot of referrals, sometimes you get very few. Your pitch, I think, was the first official pitch I got this year, but this is only the 18th of January, so not really saying much. So I want to say probably in the range of 3 to 4 on average that I'm getting pitched.
4 is 200 a year, and you've got 52 episodes, assuming you put it out a week. So already you've only got a 1 in 4 chance. Like, that's still pretty good odds. But then the more shows you do, the more it gets known, the more competitive it gets. So it's just not assumed. You still have to put work in the pitch to get picked. And that is your personal branding. That's that we spoke before. So having all that messaging in place, it's hugely important, because you can't come and say, hey, I want to talk about entrepreneurship. So what? Who cares? That's a topic, not a talking point. So,
and even within that, there's all these different little niches that you can talk about. Entrepreneurship in the medical industry or tech or something. There's just so much on just one word. So you got to really, really work to refine your pitch.
Yeah. Unless you're Richard Branson saying, I want to talk about entrepreneurship, even then he probably would do more than that. So you've got to think of clickbait that actually delivers. So what's in the subject line, and what can I do at the end of what you've said? So entrepreneurship ain't a topic. It is. It's a topic. It's not a talking point, though.
Sure.
So you need to distill it down and down and down and be more specific and cater it to the audience.
Yeah. Definitely. So then flip the question back on you. When you were looking for podcasts to come on and to talk about, your experience and Talent Squad, why did you pick the Career Challenges podcast, Kelly? I
like the word challenge and career, because I know it's for entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurship is not like, when you think of career, it's working for somebody else. So I found that hugely interesting, that you can have a career as an entrepreneur. And then I think I can see that it's for people making their own way. And that's a great way podcasting is a great way for you to get media. Like, you're probably not going to be on the Today Show, right? So
not anytime soon, no.
I don't know. I don't mean you, like, as an entrepreneur. I'm not going to be on the Today Show. You know what I mean? But I can be on podcasts.
True.
And if you've changed your career to entrepreneur as a career, then podcasting is the way to reach people, and also an avenue that people can actually do. So that's why I saw the potential. And So I thought that was quite interesting.
Awesome. So then when you're putting together a podcast tour for one of your clients, and you're looking for those specific podcasts, are you looking just in a specific, like entrepreneurship? Are you looking at just entrepreneurship podcasts for entrepreneurs, or are you being more discerning there?
No, it depends. So we have a client, some clients, we have one in Los Angeles who does a sports related, he does like a 3D biometric testing. So for him, then he wants to go to the people. So before he does the interview on the podcast, they can go through the 3D biometric testing and talk about it on the show and have their own experience. So for that person, it's hugely specific. They need to be in Los Angeles. He needs to be able to take the mobile unit to them. They need to be willing to do that test before, speak about it on air. So a lot of shows can be very specific. It's not usually blanket. Like the more specific, the better, because podcasting is niche. Mm. So I think that I want to go on a podcast, an entrepreneur podcast. No, it needs to be far more specific than that, because it's too broad. So if you're an accountant and your ideal client is dentists, well, you don't need to go on accounting podcasts. You need to go on podcasts where people with dental practices are listening. So I suggest going those different ways. Or maybe your audience is women. You need to go on women podcasts. Okay, well, are they women that are moms? Are they women that are women that have their own business? Are they women that are infopreneurs? Like there's so many different, it's like finding a vertical and then going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, then finding the shows. And then it could be, oh, this show's amazing. Oh, by the way, they haven't published an episode in 2 years. Oh, this show looks good. Oh, they don't have any guests. They're just two hosts talking. So there's a whole vetting process that you need to go. So you look at your top level categories, then deeper on those categories. Then you find a show. Then you vet the show. Then you've got to look through the back catalog and go, okay, well, what guests have they had on? Oh, Oprah was the last guest. Damn it. Well, I'm not in that league. You know what I mean? So it's a process of elimination. And that's just to see if you fit them and if they fit you. You haven't even done the pitch yet. Mm-hmm. So it is quite an involved, if you do it properly. Otherwise, you're doing a blanket pitch and you will pitch a show that I get pitched all the time for a show that I finished 4 years ago. Haven't done an episode.
Wow.
Or people get pitched, women's shows get pitched by men that have never had a male guest on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Hi, sir. Hi, host. Insert. I'd love to come on your show. Don't know what the show is. Don't know what the content is. So it's doing your due diligence.
Yes, due diligence.
I would say. Sure. Yeah. So podcast tours, you can get yourself on any podcast or pitch any podcast. You don't need to hire someone for that, but you need to, if you want to do a proper podcast tour and test out different verticals as well, then you need to be very specific about it.
Yeah. You got to be very focused and take your time. Because
Kyle, it's a bit like you said, you just took any guest.
Yeah.
Well, that's a bit like just pitching any show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So learn, and it's also lessons learned. We've spoken about that a lot in this episode.
Yes.
So in order to figure out that's what you needed to do, you did that and went, oh, okay, well, I'm going to do something different. Excellent lesson.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So then going back to, you mentioned the sports guy with his 3D biometric scale. If he's got to be local, wouldn't that, be a huge limiting factor on putting together a tour for him?
Absolutely.
Then how do you get around him though?
The shows that it's just like, that's our job. That's why he hired us to do the work to find those specific shows. Mm-hmm. So it just takes more work. And then it's also being able to get, it sounds basic, but you'd be surprised how many people don't read the emails properly or understand what you're saying. So it's having the ability to communicate that, this is a physical location. He comes to you. It takes time, and explaining what it is, because people will just say yes to stuff. Like, I've been booked on shows and the person didn't know who I was, didn't know anything. So you need to make sure your communication is effective and people know what they're getting themselves into for that specific example.
Yes, definitely. So then shifting a little bit, because you mentioned you also do this for authors, and they're putting together, I guess, a podcasting tour for their book. Are you seeing them do just a podcasting tour, or is it part of a bigger tour, a publicity tour for their book and their debut?
Yeah, so that's the thing about authors. It is an author tour. The point is to give publicity for the book. But like I said, hey, I've got a book. I want to come on your show. So what? Who cares? So it then becomes like that is the goal. But when you pitch it, it is not about the book or the person. It's more about here's the content of the book, and here's what the content of the book can do for your audience. By the way, I've got that author of the book who is the person that can speak on that thing. So it's kind of looking at it in a different way. And then, again, we use these big names because everybody knows them. Unless, with Gary Vaynerchuk. Unless you're Gary Vaynerchuk's got a new book. Oh, what's the book? I will listen to that because I know him and I want to hear what he's got to say. He's positioned as a thought leader. If you're not known, then it's about the topic, not the person. So I think that's a different approach that people don't consider. But yes, authors also do blog tours, so guest post tours, and podcasting is part of an overall strategy. It's a spoke in the PR wheel. It's definitely not the whole thing.
Sure.
It's like you can't just pick one thing and do it. These days you've got to be on Facebook and Instagram and do video and do audio and all the things. So relying on one thing I don't think is working for most people these days.
Sure. So then lead up to the tour, how much time is that in general sense?
So for authors, we suggest 6 months because you need to be able to find the show, book the show, plus get ARCs out, advanced review copies. So if I am booking a podcast tour for an author, you better bet that I want that podcast host to have the book physically in their hand before they do the interview, because then that lends well for social media. So, oh, look, here's the book that I just got, photo of that. And then you know that, again, the host may not read the book. Most of the time, they probably won't read the whole book, but you know that they've got it. You can also send some cliff notes from that and talking points. And the author needs to be able to prepare themselves for the host hasn't read the book. What do I do in that situation? What questions do I ask and answer? And how do I talk about it without being a robot and being that person that says, well, in my book on page 92, chapter 3, but you've got to get the book to find the answer. No one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that.
Yeah.
And know that a podcast tour for authors isn't necessarily going to result in sales immediately. So if that's the first time you've heard that author ever speak, you may get yourself into the ecosystem, but they might not go and buy a book the next day. So you've got to have expectations on the purpose of that podcast tour, and then what your expectations are for the book. I mean, it's different these days because you can get, Kindle and e-readers and all that. That's realistic. But maybe it's what is the goal? Like, yes, you're an author. Yes, you've got a book. Yes, it's awareness. But just think a little bit bigger on those expectations.
So for somebody who's not pitching a book, is the lead up time different?
Yes. Yeah.
Like shorter or longer?
No, it's shorter. And the other reason for that is if you've got a book release coming out, the reason why you need the lead up time is because, like you said, you're 6 weeks ahead. So you can't come to me today and be like, oh, I've got this book. It's coming out on Tuesday and I want all the episodes to come out on Tuesday, because you've got to do all the prep work, pitch the shows. Once you've pitched the shows, you've got to get the yes. Once you've got the yes, you then have to book the recording. And once you've done the recording, there's a lag between the release. And that's why authors need a longer runway, because if you do want those interviews to come out June 15th, that's a request, not an order. So you can ask the host saying, hey, it's coming out on what have you got around then, and see if you can schedule it. And that's not something you can expect to come to me on a Tuesday, book next week and get on air next week, because it's not. Podcasts don't run on the same media calendar as TV and print, where you need to get in by this date to get into this publication. or the news goes out every night at 5 o'clock, whatever it is. It's not in the news cycle. So you need to consider that, and consider every podcast is an individual outlet that has its own schedule. So that's why you need a bigger runway as an author, or if you've got a product launch, something that's timed.
Sure. Yeah.
Timely. And then other people, like if it's an evergreen content, which most podcasts are, and you don't mind when it comes out, then yeah, we can start whenever you want, but just know that there's a time lag in the timeline.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So one last question here. Has there been, I guess, an interview question or a guest where it just, everything was not going the way it was supposed to go, and you thought to yourself, it can't get any worse than this? Has there been a moment like that for you?
Probably nothing that sticks out. I just go back to this when you talk. Once I did a red carpet interview with a huge celebrity, and the light was on my microphone and it didn't record. So even though that's not the question that you ask, it just took me back to that moment, and I had to go back saying, oh yeah, you know that guy that has an Emmy, has an Oscar, and has a movie premiere? I've come back with no audio. So that's when it went wrong. And that same person that was a celebrity was that was a lights are on and nobody's home. Completely different in person and as an interview than what you expected and their personal brand is projected as. So that's another lesson. Your personal brand might be one thing, but if you're not living it and showing up as that as the interview, then there's a discord in that, and you need to check what to do. And I understand actors are actors. Yeah. It's different, but also it was very different to what was expected. Yeah, it was like pulling teeth. So it's sad that I lost the audio and horrible and worst radio moment of my career, but also probably would have been very uncomfortable to listen to that interview again.
Good to know. So last question here. What is next for the Talent Squad and for Kelly Clover?
Oh, I have exciting things coming out this year that I can't speak on, but I will contact you when it's coming out. Otherwise, we're just getting our clients on awesome podcasts, finding new podcasts all the time, monitoring podcasts, and again, refining, defining, getting better. Like that's the goal, right? Sure. What's podcasting going to be in 6 months and a year? It's changed since last year. So I'm just excited to see where everybody ends up and how they can use it in better ways than they did, even though now is already better than what was done. How amazing. Yeah. What an industry.
Yeah. So is this your subtle way of saying you're going to pitch me again to get on the show again? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, you know what it is? Yes, I will. But yes. Also, I'm the worst person. I don't know about you, but whenever I buy someone a present, I always give it away and tell them what it is in advance before I'm supposed to. So I'm trying really hard not to be that person and revealing too much too soon. That's certainly a challenge.
Mm-hmm. So good. Well, I won't put you on the spot. I won't, what's the word? Hold your feet to the fire to get the information out.
Yes. Good.
So, good. But we'll have to wait and see. So I'll put that in the show notes, and whoever's listening to this, big things are going to be coming from the Talent Squad very soon.
Thank you, Kyle. It's been a pleasure. You've been a great host. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, it's been a pleasure for me too, and thank you for being on the Career Challenges podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Career Challenges podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and like the Career Challenges podcast on your favorite podcasting app. Visit careerchallengespodcast.com for more information. Schedule your free consultation with Kyle Weckerly by visiting weckerlywriter.com today. That's WECKERLYWRITER.com. Thank you.